Every time something strange appears in the sky, most of us automatically assume NASA will be the first to show us what's really going on. They've got the billion-dollar telescopes, the deep space monitoring systems, the highest resolution detectors, and the cleanest filters. If anyone can give us the closest, clearest look at an unusual object, it should be them. That's the expectation. That's the system we trust. But with 3i Atlas, things aren't lining up the way they usually do. Because the sharpest, most detailed, most revealing images of this interstellar visitor are not coming from NASA or any major institution. They're coming from amateurs, people with backyard telescopes, small observatories, and off-the-shelf cameras, people stacking dozens of raw exposures on their laptops, people who somehow are capturing structures NASA hasn't mentioned, and features that simply don't show up in the official previews. And that is strange. Not suspicious, just strange. NASA has world-class equipment. NASA has deep space imagers that cost more than entire astronomy departments. NASA has access to wavelengths amateurs can't even detect. Yet the clearest forward-facing jet, the cleanest coma shape, and the most consistent bright nucleus are showing up in images made by regular people looking up from their driveways. I'm not saying anything is being hidden, but the question asks itself, if 3i Atlas is just a normal interstellar comet, then why do the independent images show more detail than the official ones? Why do amateur stacks reveal clear structural features, while NASA's look washed out, flat, and lacking the exact details everyone wants to analyze? And just as this debate begins to build, another object, C2014 UN 271, quietly approaches through the outer solar system. A monster, a 150-kilometer wide giant, stirring to life far beyond the region where comets normally wake up. Taken together, these two objects create a feeling people can't quite shake. Not fear, just a quiet sense that something isn't adding up. Because if everything is normal, then why isn't everything visible? When the first amateur frames of 3i Atlas began circulating online, a lot of people were startled, not because the images were bizarre, but because they were better. They showed detail, they showed structure, they showed things missing from NASA's early releases. Backyard telescopes revealing a forward-facing jet, a defined nucleus, a stable repeating feature that showed up in stack after stack after stack. Meanwhile, NASA's versions looked soft, low contrast, almost intentionally smoothed. The kind of processing you'd use if you didn't want sharp features to stand out. Again, that doesn't automatically imply anything. It could be calibration. It could be incomplete reduction. It could simply be that NASA waits until all the data is verified before releasing high-resolution imagery. But if everything is normal, why are amateurs getting the details first? Why does the nucleus show up so cleanly in independent stacks but faintly, or not at all, in the official previews? Why is the forward-facing jet obvious in backyard exposures, but missing in NASA's initial releases? Why is the brightest, clearest information coming from outside the institution with the best technology? And then there's the trajectory, retrograde, yet strangely aligned near the ecliptic, the plane where our probes, satellites, and planets orbit. Not impossible, but definitely unusual. Most interstellar visitors enter at sharp, random angles. This one seems almost to skim the same plane we use. Still, NASA remains relatively quiet. A few basic updates, no deeper explanations, no high-resolution follow-ups showing the odd jet orientation, no commentary on the structure amateurs keep confirming. This isn't about implying deception, it's about noticing a mismatch. The clearest images are coming from the people with the smallest equipment. And when the official story doesn't fully align with what independent observers are capturing, people start asking reasonable questions. While everyone argues about 3i Atlas, another object lurks in the background. UN 271, also called Bernardinelli-Bernstein. Unlike Atlas, it's not small, it's not compact. It's a massive ancient worldlet, one of the largest comet-like bodies ever discovered. Roughly 150 kilometers across, bigger than many moons, slowly drifting inward from the distant edges of the solar system. And it's waking up early, very early. UN 271 began showing activity far beyond where comets normally show any signs of life. Not near Jupiter, not near Saturn, but outside the orbit of Saturn, where temperatures are brutally low, where sunlight is faint, where even frozen nitrogen should be locked in place. Yet UN-271 was already venting carbon monoxide, ammonia, and carbon dioxide in a way that defied expectations. This alone should have triggered huge research campaigns. But the public explanation was brief. A few papers, a few mentions, and then silence. Just like with 3i Atlas, the strangeness was acknowledged but never deeply discussed. No dedicated briefings, no long public breakdowns, no detailed analysis for why something so big would behave like this so far from the sun. Two objects, two very different scales, but both acting in ways that make astronomers pause. 3i Atlas, small, interstellar, showing a suspiciously forward-facing jet, and inconsistent imaging. UN-271, huge, ancient, waking up in deep space long before any comet is supposed to. Both fall into the category of, this shouldn't be happening. But it is. UN-271 matters in this conversation because it shows that strange behavior is not rare right now. It's not just Atlas, it's not a one-time event. Objects of completely different sizes, compositions, and origins are acting outside the expected script. And the communication around them feels quiet, not hidden, just quiet. If a 150-kilometer object can behave like an active comet in the frozen outskirts with minimal explanation, then maybe the small interstellar visitor with the forward-facing jet deserves more curiosity than it's getting. And that brings us back to a larger pattern. Not proof, not conspiracy, just a pattern. When you place 3i Atlas and UN-271 side by side, something becomes obvious. The solar system is showing us unexpected things, and our institutions aren't communicating with the clarity people expect. One object is compact and strangely structured. The other is enormous and strangely active. And both arrived within a similar time frame. For nearly all of human history, we detected 0 interstellar objects. Then, in less than a decade, we suddenly have 3. Oumuamua in 2017, Borisov in 2019, and Atlas in 2025. 3 interstellar visitors in 8 years, after centuries of none. Maybe that's because our technology improved. Maybe these objects were always passing by unseen. But many astronomers quietly admit that this cluster of arrivals is not something they predicted. This is why transparency matters. Because when NASA releases low-detail previews, while amateurs release detailed images, people will compare them. When UN-271 behaves like a living comet in the outer darkness, without much public discussion, people will notice the absence of commentary. When 2 unrelated objects break the rules at the same time, the nothing unusual here tone feels out of place. None of this proves anything artificial, but it does prove that our understanding isn't complete. Some scientists think the solar system might be passing through a denser region of the galaxy. Others think we're finally detecting objects that were always there. And yes, a few propose more exotic possibilities. Ancient debris, dormant probes, relics from civilizations we'll never meet. Not because that's the answer, but because the data leaves room for questions. When the clearest frames of 3i Atlas show a forward-facing jet that NASA hasn't addressed, people ask why. When backyard astronomers show a clean nucleus, while official previews look blurred, people ask why. When a 150-kilometer body wakes up early and then disappears from public discussion, people ask why. These questions don't come from paranoia, they come from observation. Soon, 3i Atlas will pass Jupiter, and UN-271 will continue its long journey. Both will eventually fade into the black. But the questions they raise will stay with us, because this entire situation wouldn't feel strange if the information matched. If NASA's images were as sharp as the amateur ones, no one would care. If UN-271's early activity had been fully explored, no one would wonder. But that's not what happened. Instead, the clearest details came from backyard telescopes, while the official versions stayed quiet and clean. This isn't about proving anything dramatic. It's about recognizing that the sky is showing us things our explanations haven't caught up to yet. 2 different objects, 2 different mysteries, 1 undeniable pattern. The strangest details are being revealed not by billion-dollar systems, but by regular people with patience, skill, and clear skies. And if that doesn't make you curious, it should. Because even if everything is natural, none of this is ordinary. And pretending it is doesn't help anyone understand what's really happening out there. So What do you all think about this story? Natural phenomenon defying our current models? Technological artifact from an alien civilization? Or something entirely beyond our current framework of understanding? Leave your theories in the comments, and if you want to follow every update in this saga, subscribe to the channel, because December 19th, 2025, when 3i Atlas makes its closest approach to Earth, promises to be epic. Additional spectroscopic data should be released before the end of November, and those measurements might give us the definitive answer about outflow speeds and material composition. See you next time.